podcast that brings you 438 miles between each other. That's right, Lubbock and C-Stat, College Station, are separated by 438 miles. My name is George Koff, and alongside me is my co-host Desmond McLaughlin. Good morning, Desmond.
Good morning, George. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, and yourself?
Doing great.
Well, glad that you were able to join us. Desmond's going to be joining us every week. We're going to be doing this together, giving you a little bit of an insight to what we thought about the college football weekend, at least for the fall. And as we get later into the winter, into the spring, we'll probably focus on basketball, baseball, whatever college has to offer us. We're glad that you're able to join us for this fantastic morning of discussion on this Tuesday, September the 4th. We did see lots of good college football over this Labor Day weekend, and we're going to start off with the first game that happened this week, which was Texas A&M playing Northwestern State here in Kyle Field in College Station. Definitely was really good things. A&M, Trevion Williams was solid. He had 240 yards, 3 touchdowns. He started the third play of the game, 75-yard touchdown, broke a few tackles. He looked really good. I'm not going to say he's a dark horse Heisman candidate. I'll definitely say that he has provided times in the past where we think he might be, and then he kind of slows down. And mind you, Northwestern State is like a high school team. I mean, high school in quotes.
That is true.
And but put it this way, Desmond. 500 total rushing yards, or it was like 510 or something like that, was the second most in school history in one game, dating back to the Southwest Conference days with Baylor in 1990. So, I mean, that just shows you that even with the powerful SEC, we weren't reaching those numbers until last year or until this year. So, depth at running back is really good. The quarterbacks, I thought Nick Starkel, I thought he was going to start all through fall camp. I really was not. I really didn't think that Kellen Mond was going to get the starting gig over him. And then when Fisher named him that, I was sitting in class and literally just like, really? I'm kind of surprised. But he surprised me. 2 touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown as well. He still needs help on his passing, but he definitely looks more improved. And we only had 1 turnover, but that was, with the third strings, and you really, I guess you somewhat may, quote-unquote, expect that. But, winning 59-7, pretty good day. And can't wait for this week with College Game Day being here and Clemson coming to town, not knowing what Kyle Field's going to be like. They've been here before, but never in the new 102,000 Kyle Field.
Speaking of A&M quarterbacks, what do you think about your former quarterback, Kyler Murray, just going off for Oklahoma this week?
I mean, I'll tell you what, we like to call him a half-ass Aggie because he was only here for like half his freshman year. And he just really wasn't, like, he was good, but, I mean, when you're getting the starting job over Kyle Allen, you're like, screw this, I'm going to go somewhere else. Like,
right,
okay.
Right.
And so being able to see him in Oklahoma definitely is surprising. But you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. And Desmond, you're hearing this first. Kyler Murray, he's going to go to baseball. Just throwing it out there. He's a good football quarterback, but have you seen him play baseball? My word, like.
I mean, they pay really well in the MLB too. I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think for Saturday, against Clemson, we're the underdogs is what the Vegas is telling us. We're a 12-point underdog, but Clemson's going to be intimidated, especially the first half, and I think it will start to test how well A&M, how Jimbo really kind of his first big game, see what he can do. He's played Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers before. How is he going to adapt the A&M team to be ready for that? And I think that's what's going to be interesting to see. You heard it here first, 31-27, Texas A&M is going to win. Upset, first big upset of the season.
Upset Clemson, that's a very broad statement there, George.
I'll put it this way. I think there's a better chance of A&M beating Clemson than there is beating Alabama this season. So, home field advantage means a lot in college. But you guys weren't at home. You were in Houston. What's the status in Lubbock? What's going on in Texas Tech?
Well, George, this weekend we showed up in the first half and didn't show up in the second half. I liked what I saw. Running back Ward, he ran for 90 yards, 5.3 average, which is, I think, a running game in college football is very key. You've seen that from Alabama in the past before. But let's talk about that catch by T.J. Vasher all over ESPN this week.
I mean, even the broadcasters, the commentators were shaking. They were like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, dude, definitely a shout out from OBJ, and also he also had 66 yards that game for a 16.5 average. So I definitely think he's a receiver we need to locate more.
Yeah, I definitely see that.
But the big key was first quarter, starting quarterback McLean Carter gets injured. Definitely a loss that we're really going to need.
Ooh, I didn't realize the starting QB got hurt. But
yes.
I guess it would make sense if it was a loss of 20, 44, what is it, 46 to 26 or 47-27?
47-27.
Yeah, 47-27. And was it, losing him in the first half definitely is going to, have an impact on your second half offense.
Right, and he's also unsure to come back for week 2 against Lamar. But the thing that stuck out to me most was the 0 points in the fourth quarter, going unanswered.
Yikes.
Yes, not good.
Especially against Ole Miss.
Right, and a okay SEC team. Texas Tech's not used to playing with that caliber, but they are used to playing like okay Big 12 teams like Oklahoma, Texas, TCU, Baylor.
Right.
But I see them struggling this year, especially with Cliff Kingsbury on the hot seat this year.
Oh yeah, his seat ain't just hot; it's starting to smoke a little bit because
on fire.
I mean, it's very much like what we here at A&M treated someone last year when he lost to UCLA. I mean, tempers were already starting to flare, and he just couldn't show. He couldn't put results that we wanted, that the university or that the fans wanted, and I'll say this right now. I'm not a fan of the Big 12. I always find that the Big 12 it's strong, but, I mean, you always see Oklahoma, TCU.
Right.
Oklahoma State to a certain degree. Those are really the only guys that come out of it. And right now, if Texas Tech isn't careful, they're going to be stuck in the lower half with Baylor, Texas, Kansas State, and even Iowa State for a certain degree. I mean,
right. Iowa too, yeah.
That you can't become irrelevant in the Big 12 because the Big 12, quite frankly, is already irrelevant. And so, Desmond, can you hear me? Yes. We're back. We had technical difficulties here. You good? Desmond?
There, I think it. Oh, it was a little better just a second ago.
There we go. Sorry for those technical difficulties. Our first one, we're always going to have that. But like I was saying, I think the Red Raiders need to get back on track. They have that opportunity against Lamar this weekend, first home game. I'm assuming you'll be attending.
Of course. I always show off my Red Raider spirit.
And I think definitely if you can get a win over the University of Houston with Ed Oliver and them the week prior, you're in good shape too.
Yes.
So looking ahead to, I think Lamar's gonna be a big win. What about you?
Mm-hmm.
You think it's gonna be?
Lamar just in the same category as Northwestern. I think that it should be an easy win. Something that gets the team pumped for the season.
Yeah.
Get their spirit high.
Get Cliff Kingsbury's seat to be a little bit not as warm.
Right. And also give the new backup quarterback a chance to work on his stuff and just get ready with the offense.
Is he a true freshman or is he straight up red shirt? Or what are we looking at?
True freshman.
Oh, so he's just like what we had last year when Starkle went down. Mon had to get thrown into the fire.
Right.
So looking ahead, I know there was a big game on Sunday. We're not used to seeing college football on Sunday until towards the end of the season. In fact, I don't even think there is one bowl games on Sundays at the end of the season. But we had a big game in Jerry World in Dallas, Miami and LSU. And Coach Orgeron for LSU, for LSU. We thought he was on the hot seat. Good grief. Not anymore. I don't think so anymore. I think he brought a strong, focused mentality and team to AT&T Stadium, and they went in there, and their one goal was to beat Miami, not to try to go around that, and they did it. 33-17. I mean, I don't know what else you can ask for if you're LSU.
I definitely agree, especially when you come out top 10 team and just dominate like that. You have proven that you can compete.
I mean, the preseason top 25 is sometimes
a little off.
A little off because
right.
you don't have any balance prior. You may have, like I always say, the top 5. Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, and Wisconsin. That was not in that order, but that was the top 5. Those were pretty solid. Those are going to be good teams. But
right.
Everything
it's consistent.
everything after the top 5 is kind of like, okay, we just got to wait to see what happens, because you can't. The Washington Auburn game. Like, if I would have known better, Washington would not have been top 10, maybe top 15, but they were not. They just didn't look like a top team. I mean, we're getting off track, but like that was they were not looking like that. And Miami, to a certain degree, they did not look like a top 10 team. But it's still a big win for LSU, and it's still.
And considering you're an Aggie, how do you feel about a fellow SEC team just being that dominant?
Well, it scares me because the mentality here is that we want to beat LSU. We haven't beaten them since we joined the conference in 2012, and we were like, this is our year. This is our year. We're at home. We're playing a team that's probably going to be pretty, they're going to be pretty depleted, because I'm still saying they're going to have a 7-5 record. I mean, I don't want to, conclude that, and that one of those 7 wins is not not over us. That's, other teams. I just think LSU, you look at their schedule, they've got Mississippi State at home, Bama on the road, Auburn at home. Even home field advantage speaking, they're playing hard teams at the beginning of the season. That is hard to kind of finish or start off strong. It's very much like A&M too. We've got to start off strong, and if we don't, we're gonna have to make up for it in October and November, and that's gonna be tricky too. I was gonna ask this question, but what do you think is more important to the college football race and outlook? A Miami loss or an LSU win?
I definitely think an LSU win, because, as you said, the top 10 rankings for like Miami might be off, so I don't think it matters as much as like another SEC team being dominant. I think that could shake up the whole conference, the whole league itself.
Agree. And now you look at the ACC with last night with Florida State getting tromped by getting destroyed by Virginia Tech. I mean, a big surprise there. You don't know what to expect from the ACC. You're going to have Clemson, and then everybody else is just going to have to file in.
Right.
And it's just going to be like, okay, Clemson's going to play some garbage team in the ACC championship game. Not garbage, but not as high caliber. They're going to win the ACC unless something else happens. I mean, I don't think maybe there's going to be an upset here and there inside the ACC. I'm not talking about just like A&M coming to A&M this week, but like Boston College or Syracuse or somebody else is maybe going to win. I still think that Clemson is going to go to at least the playoff, not necessarily maybe the national championship game. But you have to look at it and going, well, the ACC is a question mark. Miami is struggling. Florida State's struggling. Virginia Tech looked very good, but again, we don't know Florida State, whether or not they're struggling. What the status there. And after that, that's it. You're looking at the top 25. You only have those. Those were the only ones in the top 25. Was Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Florida State and Miami were the only 4 teams from the ACC in the top 25.
Wow.
So we'll see. I think that's a story to follow the rest of the season, is what happens with the ACC. But you have to definitely say that maybe Miami was somewhat overrated. But we'll see. Now switching gears to Orlando. Orlando had a good neutral site game. Well, good if you're Nick Saban in the Crimson Tide.
Right.
But again, the ACC question mark. People thought Louisville was probably going to put up a fight. Maybe even not. Okay, going into it, I thought maybe they weren't going to win, but maybe they're going to put up 3 or 4 touchdowns. But instead, they go into this and they're like, well, we're down, 30 whatever, at halftime. What the heck? And it's just, it's seeing Alabama that dominant, even with question marks at quarterback, is, for any college football fan, it's like, really? Like, Alabama is still that dominant? What's your takes on that?
Let me start off right here. Jalen Hurts is not the starting quarterback.
Fair.
He has proven it to us last year through the national championship that he's not better than Tua. I think it is crazy if that Nick Saban hasn't made that point yet. He's young, athletic, can run, very smart with the ball. I liked what I saw from this week.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think Jalen Hurts, the only reason why Tua is getting all this national attention is because you kind of play with a sense of adrenaline in the national championship game, and it's not like, oh, well, we're just a regular game. You're playing for a title, so...
But that's when it matters the most. That's when you're supposed to play your best.
Yeah, but you don't know...
the best game.
Okay, but you don't know what he was going to do in the regular season because he never played. And now, yes, he's throwing touchdowns and using his feet to run in, but Jalen Hurts, over the last season, was dominant. Look at him against Mississippi State. Look at him against Arkansas. Look at him against Auburn, for instance. Yes, they lost the game, but look at the Alabama offense. Either one they work with well, and it was curious to see the run game too. I think Saban's got a tough decision because he doesn't want to leave Jalen Hurts on that bench for too long, because then he's going to do like what happened here at A&M, and he's going to go transfer somewhere else. He's going to go find somewhere else where he can go play, where he can get the starting gig instead of sitting behind some freshman or redshirt freshman, who's just like, no, sophomore. He's a sophomore, isn't he? Isn't Tua a sophomore? Yeah. Some sophomore's like, oh, I'm just out here running and throwing.
I don't know, whatever it is, I think Alabama will be perfectly fine with whatever quarterback he chooses. But my decision is Tua needs to start.
Well, and that's what I will butt in here and say that Alabama, Saban did announce on I believe he announced yesterday. Yeah, yesterday that Tua is going to start on Saturday against Arkansas State. But I mean, again, he's probably only going to play like a quarter and a half.
Right, Arkansas State.
But again, you always have to focus on the small schools because those small schools sometimes give you some trickiness. Like this is kind of tying into our next segment, but look at Utah State and Appalachian State, what they did to Michigan State and Penn State respectively.
I was very surprised when I saw Appalachian State was in overtime with Penn State. I was like, what's going on here?
I was coming back. I was running some errands on Saturday, so I missed that afternoon game. But I was listening to them on the radio, and they said, "Oh, and we've got a tight one here in Happy Valley. Penn State's tied with Appalachian State as we get ready to start overtime." I'm going, "Excuse me? Somebody went to overtime?" And it's and mind you know what happened 11 years ago on Saturday? The famous Appalachian State Michigan game in which Appalachian State upset Michigan. That was when they were in the big house and surprised everybody. Surprised literally everybody, and took it, surprised everybody and got the upset and named upsets like what we call it today.
Right.
So I think it will be interesting to see what happens on. Sorry about that. I was trying to charge my computer. I think it'll be interesting to see later in the season what happens when those small teams kind of come into a big stadium, and of course they're getting paid to play there. Right? And they're paying. I think we paid Northwestern State close to $1 million to play here at Kyle Field, just because we wanted a victory. I mean,
Right.
so. Now, what about Kansas? I know since you're in the Big 12 with Texas Tech. What, you guys? Kansas is good for basketball, but what happens in football? I mean, what? How do you root for? How do you be a fan in Lawrence when you can't you just can't expect a win against Nicholls State?
I don't know. It could have just been a bad game, but it's looking good for Texas Tech. It's another Big 12 team we don't have to worry about. Maybe another possible win for Cliff Kingsbury. Definitely needs all the ones he can get, but I'm not really focused on Kansas. I'm really focused on the powerhouse teams, as in TCU and Oklahoma.
So if we're talking right now, how many wins do you think Big 12 wise?
Ooh, that's a hard one, George.
For Texas Tech, how many conference wins, in other words?
Let's see. Well, I'll be honest with you, George. I'll say maybe 2 at the most. 2.
2?
Yes.
Kansas and
Oklahoma State. I see us beating Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. That's the ones you choose.
Those are the ones I choose, George.
Okay. I was going to say like 3, but I mean, looking at the schedule.
Who would you say? Well,
okay,
don't see them. Maybe Kansas State.
So
maybe
let's see. Oklahoma State's a loss. West Virginia's a loss at home. TCU
definitely a loss.
I think it'll be closer, but I think that's a loss. Kansas is a win. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, I think, is a win.
You think so? I think
we don't know. We haven't seen them play because their game got canceled this week. But
yes,
I think Kansas, Iowa State. Honestly, I think Texas is a win. Texas.
That's a big one.
Which we can talk about Texas in just a second.
Yes.
And but I think and Baylor possibly. I think that's 1, 2, 3. I'm thinking 4. I'm thinking 4 and 5 because you guys play 9 games.
Well, George, you're being very generous to us here in Lubbock.
Generous? I'm not being generous. I'm being realistic here. 2 wins is not realistic. But I mean, what would you say about A&M? Are you going to say, like everyone else in the country, 4 and 4, and lose all 4 SEC games that are on the road? Like, excuse me, I don't believe in that. I mean, we're not going to lose to Auburn, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Alabama, all on the road.
I don't know, George. I mean, looking at your schedule, that's definitely a loss to Alabama.
Yes, I agree with that one.
Definitely a win against Kentucky and Arkansas.
Yes, that's 2.
I think you all have a good chance against South Carolina.
Okay,
Mississippi
3.
State should be a close game.
Benefit of the doubt for the home or the away? What are you saying? Win or loss?
I mean, they're away, but you never know with Mississippi State.
Okay, well, and then that's.
I'm gonna use that for a toss-up one. It could go either way.
Okay, so then that's either at that point 4 conference wins or 3
definitely
conference
3
wins.
Definitely, I think probably a loss against Auburn.
That's fair.
Ole Miss,
yes. Or seeing how
considering that Texas Tech put up 27 with the backup quarterback, I think I might have to give that one to you. But they also did put up almost 50. But I'm gonna give that a win to you. I want to see how the season starts off. A lot of times, growing up at Aggie, I used to watch a lot of the games, and they'd start off really good the first four games. They usually like 3-4-0, and you'd be like, okay, like this season, and then all it takes is one game against a big team, usually Alabama, and then after that, it just goes down south.
Right.
And y'all
that was Summerlin. That was the Summerlin era. Okay, November went out with Summerlin. Hopefully, coming in, we go better in October and November. And I mean, looking at our schedule, we play 1 home game in October. We play 3 in September, 3 in November, 1 in October. It's a tricky schedule. I don't like the way that they set us up. but with the scheduling. But I
Just
mean, it
since
is what it
y'all
is.
play Clemson next week, and then 2 more weeks after that y'all play Alabama. Y'all packing it on, and y'all have like other teams too, like Auburn, and who else was it?
Mississippi State, South Carolina, LSU,
Right,
Ole
but like
Miss,
yeah,
Arkansas.
LSU at the last game of the season. I'd like to see that game. I like to see the LSU A&M game. That should be a good one.
And I think actually for this year, the LSU game, like everyone says every year, oh, it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. I think this year truly it will be close because the two, even just one game, maybe as we go down the season, it might be more of a one-sided I think, or other way. But I think truly, without being trying to be too biased to A&M, I really think that LSU and the A&M game is going to be a close one. It's going to be like one score or three points or something.
Right.
But looking ahead to this week, any big upsets that you might put somebody on upset watch?
Well,
I mean,
not big, but surprising. First off, I'd like to give a shout out to Tom Herman for the first play of the game, declining the penalty because of Jordan McNair's death. That was a really class act.
I mean, yes, I would. I don't like to root for that school in Austin, but give him credit for declining the penalty and being able to for both teams to respect what happened. And
But let's talk about that bad Maryland ruining the homecoming, the first game of the Tom Herman reign.
the first game. This is Tom Herman's second season, Desmond. Because they played Maryland last year and and Maryland beat them in Austin. They beat them in Austin last year. So, but either way, it was still a way to spoil both years. And the funny thing is I saw a tweet from ESPN that said the only two teams since 2015 that Maryland has beat 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Rutgers and Texas. That's it.
That must be a little icing on the cake for an Aggie like yourself, right, George?
Oh, are you kidding? Are you kidding? It's like putting the whipped cream and cherry on top.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see a rematch between Texas and A&M, like A&M and the SEC. Now
No, we don't need it. They do. We're not until we need it, and we both need it. We'll schedule it, but we don't need it. So, you know what? Kudos to our AD for saying, screwed. Sorry. We're just going to move on and hope for the best.
Yeah.
So I think if we're looking at somebody on upset alert, I would say Mississippi State against Kansas State. That's a big one. I would say watch out Arizona because U of H might come in and beat you.
Right.
Especially after losing the BYU to start the Summerlin era. Never a good estimate. So I think just looking at moving forward and looking at North Texas, whatever they do this season, that's gonna be my school to watch here. Besides Texas A&M, I really think there's good things going on there. If they're beating teams like SMU and other teams, then like by 20 points, and they're in the Conference USA, I think that's a good way to say that they're a good team. And,
right.
I don't expect them to win the Conference USA. I just expect them to kind of go ahead and maybe, I don't know, win their division, but not their conference. Anything you wanted to add with a surprise, maybe from this past week?
I just feel like the Appalachian State game this week, that definitely surprised me. Again, can't really trust the top 10 this early, but whenever you beat a top 10 team in overtime in the first game, being a small school really looks good on you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Also, I think for me it had to be Will Greer. In West Virginia, the Mountaineers in Charlotte. Tennessee, they were all saying, "Oh, this is gonna be a close game. It's gonna be a good game." And then when West Virginia starts out, I think it was like 20 unanswered, something along those lines. At that point, it's just like, okay, Will Greer is showing off and showing that he can compete. So mark my words, West Virginia, dark horse in the Big 12.
Wasn't Will Greer he's also the brother of the famous Viner, right? Nash Greer, and he used to play for Florida, correct?
Yes, he did. He did. He transferred from Florida to
That's what I thought.
West Virginia. Yeah, and I think he really could win the Heisman if he keeps up those 5 touchdowns, and especially the Big 12 when we see shutouts all the time. We literally see, or not shutouts, sorry, shootouts all the time. I don't see why not. That's not a good estimate. So, any last final thoughts?
No, I'm just really excited for next week. I'm excited to see how Texas Tech responds. I mean, they have an easy win next week. I definitely would like to see Saban's choice with quarterbacks, even though I definitely have made my mind known. You know, it's definitely two all the way.
Yep.
But A&M Clemson's going to be a big game. You know, I'm going to have to watch that one.
I think don't forget 6 p.m. on ESPN for those of you wanting to watch. And College Game Day will be here starting at 8 a.m. Central, coming to you live from outside of Kyle Field. And we will bring some more segments and new segments next time we meet, which will be every Tuesday, is what we've decided. I think is every Tuesday, where we can digest the AP top 10. Or top 25, not just top 10, top 25, and look ahead to the following week's actions and look back on some of the games that were played. So, and if you ever want to contact us, you can contact us at the Q5podcast@gmail.com. Give us some insight as if you want to hear something on our podcast. And from College Station and from Lubbock, Texas, I'm George Koff signing off for Desmond McLaughlin. And you've been listening, and you were listening to the 5th Quarter podcast of College Sports Fanatic. Goodbye, everybody.